The word of today is tired, because I am. I hope you guys had a wonderful week and you got to enjoy this past 3-day weekend. If this proves to be less troublesome editing-wise for me, then I probably will adopt this in the future going forward for similar videos. I've been on something of a kick revisiting old movies that I enjoyed as a kid, and something in my brain kept nagging me to revisit this old film called The Last Dragon with adult eyes. Now, I distinctly remember loving this movie as a kid, and there's this one moment in particular that lives rent-free in my brain, so I'm just going to show it to you with no context. The clip is completely irrelevant to what we're going to be talking about today, but I just wanted to show it to you so you knew what exactly it was that kept beating me over the head until I caved and put it on the watch list. So apparently, The Last Dragon is a Motown film with Berry Gordy's name slapped on it. For those who don't know, Berry Gordy was the one who ran Motown Records and is known for essentially cheating his artists, for example the Jackson 5, out of royalties, among other scummy things. The rise and fall of Motown is surprisingly very interesting, so I would recommend doing the research if that's something that interests you. Before we begin, quick reminder that you can join the community on Discord where you can keep up to date for what videos are planned and for when. You can join us for future watch parties, or you can just chat and post memes. Don't forget to like and subscribe, both help the channel grow at a quicker rate, and if you'd like to show some additional support like these lovely people, feel free to hop on over to the Somewhere Past Never Patreon page. Links to everything are in the description below. Thanks for watching, as always, and let's hop right into it. The movie opens with a montage that serves as just another reminder that I need to start going to the gym again. We're following Leroy Green, a kind of socially inept but well-meaning guy who just really loves Chinese martial arts. While he's training, his teacher fires an arrow at him, to which Leroy spins around and just swats it away. Listen, that's cool and all, but this easily could have led to any number of situations where the outcome wasn't him deflecting that arrow. I also refuse to believe that this is a practical part of his training. One thing you'll notice fairly quickly is that the script isn't the best. It doesn't get better per se, you just kind of acclimate to it over time and you lower your expectations. Leroy catches one of the arrows fired at him, and apparently it was the one arrow he was supposed to catch. When asked how he knew that this was the one he needed, Leroy basically is like, beats me bro. This opens a new questline for Leroy, to which he needs to go on a journey to help him find a master to complete his final stage of training. But get this, his training is only complete when he reaches a state in which his body is covered in a sublime glow and he knows things without knowing things. Berry Gordy invented Ultra Instinct confirmed. Leroy's teacher tells him that he needs to take the journey alone, which bummed Leroy out since it's his first breakup. So his teacher gives him a gold medallion and tells him to go find an old sage named Some Dumb Guy. Also, the medallion supposedly belonged to Bruce Lee, which is a wildly priceless thing to just give away, but it honestly doesn't matter in the context of this story. Leroy walks around in a comically standard Chinese outfit that you'd see in a low-effort fighting game. It's the kind of getup you just wouldn't see other people wearing, regardless of their passion or love for Chinese martial arts. It has the same energy as a group of D&D players asking the DM why their characters can't blend into a crowd when their characters look like this. Between the outfits, fighting style, and visual references, it's very clear that Leroy is supposed to be a modern parallel to Bruce Lee. There's even a joke in the film where someone calls him Bruce Leroy. Bruce Lee, Bruce Leroy. Get it? It's very clever, so don't feel bad if it went over your head. We cut to a theater where people are watching, I think, Enter the Dragon? I'll admit it's been a long time since I've seen anything other than The Chinese Connection, and I couldn't be bothered to Google it. Everyone in the theater seems to be having a good time until... Ah man, don't you just hate it when you're at your local AMC and people bring their oversized boomboxes and start dancing in the aisles during the best parts? Man, those b-boys really made Passion of the Christ awkward. And then Busta Rhymes makes his flamboyant debut. This guy's name is, Show Nuff. Like the affirmation. This is how the movie decides to introduce him.
Am I the meanest?
Show enough.
Am I the prettiest?
Show enough.
Am I sexual?
Yeah. Show Nuff, played by the late Julius Carry, rest in peace, sports exaggerated gear that looks like a mixture of football pads with a modern interpretation of samurai clothing. Before I dive any deeper into the absurdities of this movie, I do want to say that I really like the choice to give Show Nuff a Japanese samurai aesthetic. Thematically, it goes a layer deeper in terms of the conflict between Leroy and Show Nuff when you remember that China and Japan had a lot of static back in the day, which is what movies like The Chinese Connection were based upon. I dig the parallel between Leroy representing China like Bruce Lee did, and Shonuff representing that imperialistic era of Japan. Their historical relationship is mirrored pretty nicely here, but it's something that you'd completely miss if you weren't up to date on your history game. I also just realized that Shonuff is wearing shutter shades with Japan's national flag on them. I had no idea these atrocities existed back then. Damn. We come to find out that Shonuff's ego is so fragile that he damn near squares up with a kid that's like, I know who can beat you. But that's just how kids are. You could bench 500 pounds right in front of them and some snot-nosed brat would still be like, but can he beat Goku though? Didn't think so, sweaty. The kid just essentially throws Leroy under the bus. Meanwhile, my man is just chilling in the front row eating popcorn with chopsticks. That doesn't seem practical. I'm sure it prevents his fingers from getting all greasy, but it's like, you're in America, just grab a handful of popcorn and shove it into your mouth like the rest of us. Shonuff confronts Leroy and drops the N-word with a soft A and not a hard R, but for some reason, I was under the impression that this was a family movie.
Catches bullets with his teeth. Nigga, please.
Like I said, I hadn't seen this movie in literal decades, so I was completely caught off guard. Before anything can escalate between Leroy and Shonuff in any meaningful way, a fight breaks out because people are getting annoyed that he won't just sit down and let them enjoy the film that they presumably paid to see. But like, when the scene started, it wasn't silent in this theater, it was pretty noisy. So I don't think in the real circumstances of this scene that anyone would have really cared that he was in the front row talking. I'm not sure why I expected otherwise, but the quality of the fight choreography across the board for this film is approximately 2 tiers below Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So it's about on par with third graders pretending to fight like Power Rangers. Martial arts films don't have to have flawless scripts so long as the scrapping is entertaining in the end. But this movie has neither one of those qualities. Probably because I couldn't afford a good fight or stunt coordinator because, you know, Barry Gordy. During the scuffle, Leroy just kind of pieces out, and when Shonuff gets a moment after chomping on some guy's Achilles, Shonuff calls out Leroy like, I'm gonna get you, sucker, because I'm the master of Harlem and the meanest and the baddest, and you can't be those things simultaneously because then grammatically it wouldn't work, and if they did, then who would the kids listen to at the dinner table, and who's gonna tell my mom that we're not coming for Christmas? It's a whole thing. The way Leroy leaves makes me think that he didn't actually hear what Shonuff was saying because it was very noisy in that theater, but he was just too polite or embarrassed to ask him to repeat himself.
Shogun is the master!
Whatever, nigga.
We then shift gears to this generically rich milquetoast white family, but I'm mostly disinterested in them when it comes to this movie. To be honest, none of the plot threads except for Shonuff's hate boner for Leroy is even all that interesting. We're all just here to see these two eventually throw down. Everything else is just filler. Like, these people are supposed to be the antagonists, but for different reasons. The main baddie is Eddie Arcadian, who's a super rich mogul who apparently got super filthy rich through the video game industry. So he wants to get his girlfriend Angie's music career to take off by getting her onto a Soul Train type show called Seventh Heaven. And he's willing to do anything to make it happen. That's it. That's his whole story summed up. I've just completely told you everything there is to know about his story arc. I mean, he's got goons and stuff, and he's clearly killed before based on what he said in the script, but his only goal in this movie is to turn his girl into a, music star. No bank robberies, no peddling nuclear arms or drugs, no human trafficking, nothing. He just wants his parrot-looking girlfriend to take the world by storm with her unparalleled songwriting ability, vocal mastery, and sex appeal. Next we meet Laura, played by the late Denise Matthews, aka Vanity. Rest in peace. She's the host of the show Eddie wants to take control over, and the way she enters the set can't possibly be safe. That's a fast track to ending up like Owen Hart. Laura has a moment during her musical number where she delivers her lines like a witch.
You can't get it up anymore.
You wicked bitch. Witch.
Oh my god!
Witch ass. No.
It kind of makes me feel like after hearing it, I should be cursed in some way. Bad Guy Baldman receives word that Laura turned down his invitation to meet with him, having done so because her schedule is booked solid for several weeks, and Eddie's not too thrilled with that. The way he goes from chipper to livid gives off the same energy as guys that sub to ladies on OnlyFans and then act surprised when they realize their interactions are transactions and not a relationship. It's serious little dick energy. This Soul Train scene goes on for entirely too long, which brings me to something I noticed. This movie has so many musical numbers. Not like people breaking into song or anything, but instances that just feel like haphazardly edited music videos that just go on for just a bit too long. And there are so many of them in this movie, and I know that's a byproduct of it being a Motown film, but holy shit, dude, tone it down. Elsewhere, I guess Leroy was still just wandering around Harlem this whole time. It's after dark and he just happens to pass by the dance studio where Laura was recording, and of course they make extended eye contact, so you know, something spicy is bound to happen. One of Eddie's goons tries to kidnap Laura, but doesn't play it cool at all. He basically gives the entire game away the moment she's like, hey, where are we going? He doesn't make an excuse or anything, he doesn't try to speed the car up, he just basically goes, you're being kidnapped, duh. When she tries to escape, because again, the car's barely moving, one of the henchmen just kind of watches Laura struggles instead of helping his colleague, comrade, co-worker, partner. I'm not sure what the criminal terminology is here, but basically he just stands around and does nothing, which gives Leroy enough time to roll up and throw hands with everybody. My favorite part of this whole scene is when Leroy grabs the guy and throws him through an open car window with the same intensity as if he had just finished a playthrough of Sleeping Dogs. But since the window was already rolled down, there's no glass to break, so it's far less dramatic, but way funnier. Do these guys not have guns? Aren't they supposed to be enforcers in Harlem? And they don't have guns? I mean, I guess the movie can't happen if Leroy only brought his fists to a gunfight, but still, that's weird, right? After Leroy runs those guys off, Laura's like, damn, that was kinda hot. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. But like a total baller, Leroy hails a cab for her and then just goes. Like he Danny Phantoms her and just vanishes. Unfortunately, in the scuffle, he loses his medallion without realizing it, but like I said earlier, this medallion is ultimately pointless, so I'm just never gonna mention it again. Skipping forward, we see Leroy as an instructor in a dojo, but what the hell? When did this become a thing? And look, another nod to Bruce Lee with Leroy's outfit. Also, apparently the script has the word Oriental in it.
You see, people are afraid of Oriental dudes.
You're not supposed to say Oriental anymore, it's Asian.
Why?
Nobody knows why, it's just bad.
They do know why, asshat. Oriental insinuates other, so some people consider it derogatory.
I know the times and attitudes were different back then, but it still kind of blindsided me in a movie that takes so much inspiration from Chinese martial arts films. You'll come to notice that there are a few things in this film that aged about as poorly as Milk, or John Voight, whichever one you think smells the worst and would be the least pleasant to touch. After that tactical strike is lobbed at us, Shonuff's crew rolls in to cause some more trouble, but can we just take a moment to appreciate just how truly stupid their uniforms are? The Kung Fu camo? It doesn't look cool, practical, or comfortable, so what's the goal here? Do they think it's gonna help them when they're running from the police or rival gangs? Like, damn, I was hot on his heels and I was gonna cuff him, but then I lost him against this brick wall with the afro. Shonuff tries to get Leroy to fight him, but Leroy has a moral code, so he won't. So Shonuff makes an impotence joke.
Get him, girls. Maybe you can get a rise out of this limp wimp.
Then Shonuff catches me off guard again by calling Leroy a coolie.
Yeah, coolie. Kiss my Converse.
Which might not mean much to most of you, but the term coolie was used as shorthand to refer to unskilled laborers, usually East and South Asian immigrants in the late 1800s that traveled to the Americas as part of a system of indentured servitude. But unsurprisingly for America, it also very quickly became a pejorative for those same people as white business owners began hiring them for dirt cheap to avoid paying locals a fair wage, which of course bred lots of conflict between immigrants and white residents who were also struggling to keep their families fed. Again, it's weird to have that kind of terminology in a film that so clearly loves foreign films. I'm not entirely sure why Shonuff called Leroy a coolie, since Leroy is very clearly not Chinese, but I can only assume it's based on how he's acting and dressing and talking. That's my best guess, but either way, holy shit, dude. This isn't relevant at all, but following the scene where Shonuff shows concern for Leroy's erectile dysfunction,
Limp.
Leroy has breakfast with his family but addresses his parents as Mama-san and Papa-san. What's weird about this is that Leroy's character is designed almost entirely around Bruce Lee, who's Chinese. But here, Leroy's using distinctly Japanese honorifics to address his family. China does have their own system of honorifics, but it sounds very different than the ones we associate with Japan, like san, sama, chan, kun, and so on. I don't know who got their wires crossed when writing the script, but it's just something I noticed. Leroy's family overall is entirely irrelevant to the story, so I'm just going to skip every single one of their scenes, with the exception of one. Moving forward, we see Eddie is scheming again and has a guy named Rocky pose as the technician for Laura's show and lures her dumbass out of the building and into a box truck telling her he needed to do a sound check? Did that not seem suspicious to her? This goes back to Eddie's goofy ass motives. He has Laura kidnapped so that he can force her to listen to his girlfriend's dumbass music. It's the most aggressive version of check out my mixtape possible. Laura again refuses to air Angie's video on her show, and Eddie squares up like he's preparing to torture her before Leroy kicks in the door and starts giving everyone the business. It forces me to ask the question again, why don't these guys have guns? Like if someone broke into my place dressed as a ninja and then started beating the hell out of my entire group of friends, I'm not gonna throw hands with them. Do I look like I could beat a ninja? Of course I can. How dare you doubt me? I was backing down for the ninja safety, not mine. Leroy tries to intimidate Eddie into leaving Laura alone, but honestly, I'd be more likely to feel threatened by Barbie's horse adventure than this awful attempt.
I do not think Miss Charles enjoys your company. It would be best that you leave her alone.
But then he just lets Eddie unmask him without even trying to stop him? If you weren't going to try that hard to protect your identity, why even bother wearing a mask? Weird that Leroy can quickly beat up multiple foes, but isn't quick enough to stop a balding man who probably can't see over the counter at McDonald's. Laura rewards Leroy for completing his questline by returning the medallion to him, since she was the one that found it. Haha, I lied to you, I had to mention it. With this in hand, he goes on to continue the side quest of looking for some dumb guy.
Some dumb guy.
I know this was his original goal, but every plotline in this film feels like a side quest, including the conflict with Shonuff. Now, there has to be some cultural context to the term coolie from the 1980s that I'm just missing because people keep saying it.
Look here, chump. The master don't see nobody, especially no jive coolies.
And it's so jarring to hear it from Asian characters. It's not quite the same as hearing a black person say the N-word, but for a couple of reasons. First of all, the N-word has far more historical context baked into it thanks to the several century head start it had, and the way its very existence and purpose was weaved into the fabric of our society. 2. The term coolie doesn't exist in the same social state in which the Asian community feels the need to take the word back in order to attempt to diminish its power. Terms like coolie and oriental were thankfully discarded for the most part by everyone other than people with personalities equivalent to a stagnant bowl of dog water. The term disappeared just as quickly as it arose in the grand scheme of things. But I think what makes its inclusion in this movie even worse is that it's a remnant from the era in which the Chinese Exclusion Act was a celebrated piece of legislation. Anyway, Leroy doesn't end up gaining access to the building he found after being stonewalled by 3 Chinese guys. Disregarding the weird irony of an Asian man using Asian stereotypes to communicate after saying "let me break it down so he can understand," that guy totally steals Leroy's hat. Elsewhere, Shonuff shows up at the pizzeria Leroy's family owns looking for him and wrecks the place when Leroy's dad doesn't know where he is, but also says he probably wouldn't tell him if he did. Why would any parent tell someone that's clearly shady and aggressive where their child is? Leroy arrives shortly after all of this, and his family is for some reason mad at him? Like, I get the shop was trash, but that wasn't Leroy's fault. How was he supposed to know that an unhinged middle-aged man was going to wreck his family's pizzeria? That makes no sense. I hate when movies do this. I hate when anything does this. It's bad storytelling. After that, Leroy kind of deals with some inner conflict because his brother called him a coward, but that all takes a backseat when Laura arrives looking for him to be a bodyguard. You know, to guard her body. To get back at Leroy and force Laura to air his woman's garbage music, Eddie's collecting criminals and serial killers like Pokemon. I don't know if he has enough gym badges to control some of these guys. To Eddie's girlfriend's credit though, she can tell that he's failing the vibe check at world record pace and decides to bail. The last recruit Eddie needs to complete his Pokédex is Shonuff, who is apparently running a fight club. But we're not supposed to talk about that, so we're gonna move on. Leroy has a bit of an epiphany about how he can get into the fortune cookie building that he got turned away from earlier, and he bails on Laura. But the moment he's out of her line of sight, she gets kidnapped. Like that. She's Mokabud. To get inside the building, Leroy disguises himself as a pizza delivery guy, and I do think it's unironically pretty funny watching him trying to figure out how to pass off as a cool, hip person because he's so mentally and emotionally removed from his own culture.
Hey, my man. What it look like?
Meanwhile, you the same fool that came dressed as a coolie?
What? Oh my god! Okay, where to even fucking begin with that one? So this entire time, I thought the term coolie was being used as some kind of 80s hip slang that I just wasn't picking up on. You know, trying to give the movie the benefit of the doubt. My brother-in-law thought the same thing when we were talking about it a few days ago. So I was like, cool. Maybe I'm just missing something. I was born in 91. This movie came out in 85. But then, one of the guys says, "Are you the same fool that came dressed as a coolie?" And let me remind you, this is what Leroy was wearing when he first met them. That's a Chinese-inspired outfit. So they were directly referring to that aspect, which makes the use of the word so much worse, now that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they haven't changed the context of cultural identification behind it. But the moment gets even worse when Leroy responds with, no, we all just look alike.
No, we all just look alike, my man.
Oh my fucking god! Setting aside the shit-flavored, low-hanging fruit that can scarcely be called comedy on its very best day, these two lines back-to-back nearly gave me a fucking aneurysm. Despite taking so much inspiration from Chinese martial arts films, there is a suspicious amount of anti-Asian humor in this film. I legit feel like I just sat through an entire episode of Black White in 15 seconds.
Did you get your race card? Hell no, I didn't get my race card.
Anyway, Leroy discovers that some dumb guy never existed and that he was just some dumb guy all along. From there, he finds out what happened to Laura and gears up for the final section of the movie where presumably all the cool fighting would go down, but don't forget the budget of this film was approximately $7. Leroy arrives at the dance hall to do battle with a bunch of middle-aged mall ninjas that look like they vote Republican. He handles himself pretty alright, but the moment he starts to get even slightly overpowered, the students from his dojo come rushing in to help him fight. This is where you can tell just how bad the fight choreography really is. Like, look at this guy. This guy on the left doesn't even get touched, he just throws himself to the floor anyway. After all, he signed up for a gangbang, not an orgy, and then literal children showed up and he's like, I don't want to end up on a registry and what would the neighbors think, and Melissa's mom always thought I wasn't good enough for her daughter anyway, so I can't give her another excuse to try to bring it. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I understand Leroy's students are here to help even the odds a bit, but these are literal children going up against criminals and actual murderers. Their presence should not change the tide of this fight as quickly or drastically as it does. This should just end up being a room full of dead kids. Leroy gets lured into an incredibly obvious trap and ends up face to face with Shonuff. The fight is as bare bones as it gets, with the two just kind of going back and forth until Leroy sneaks up and gets like a decisive blow on Shonuff. However, plot twist, when Shonuff gets back up, it's revealed he's gained access to his own version of the glow, but it's red, so you know it's evil. It's done with a pretty bad rotoscope since the $7 budget wasn't enough to make it look good. After beating on Leroy for a while, Shonuff does that villain thing that you've seen in countless movies where the villain asks the hero a question and then immediately dunks his head in water. He's like, who's the master? Which is a question he's been asking the entire movie, trying to get Leroy to bend the knee. But while Leroy's trying to, breathe, he dunks him again. I never understood why this is the thing. Like, either you want me to answer you, or you want me to drown. You can have both, you just have to do it in the right order. While this is going on, Leroy's having flashbacks to earlier moments in the movie, and he's like, hey, maybe I'm the master. Now Leroy's finally attained the glow, but his is gold, so you know he's the special one. But as you can guess, the fight ends exceedingly quickly after this happens. Eddie gets strung up on a chain, the police come to clear things out, and we transition to the last scene of the film where what the fuck are these guys doing? Also, apparently in the credits there's someone credited as Best Boy, and I'm just going to assume it was a dog they kept on set. Well, that was The Last Dragon. It was much worse than I remember, with a lot more racism. Sorry this one took so long to get out. I took a bit of a break for mental health reasons, but also to take a step back and reevaluate my upload schedule again in regard to how realistic it is for me as a single creator. I might return to doing just one concept video a month while peppering in maybe one or two of these kinds of videos where I just watch a film from my childhood and poke fun at it, either by myself or with someone like Zoran. I know I keep changing how I plan to run the channel, but I'm just trying to find that middle ground where I can make the content I want and also post semi-regularly without burning out. so just bear with me a little longer. I think I'm almost to the point where I've figured out what I really want to do with this channel. Big shout out to Zoran and AJA on Patreon for their continued support. It means a lot to me. And once again, if you'd like to show some additional support, you can hop on over to the Somewhere Past Never Patreon page, where for as little as $1 a month, you can gain access to some additional privileges. And it would just be cool to have you. Don't forget you can join the Discord community, where you can keep up to date on how I'm planning to do things, or any announcements, or any changes in the schedule. And you can just come chat. It's cool to have other people bouncing ideas off of each other, talking nonsense, posting memes. It's a good time. Don't forget to like and subscribe as we push towards 2,000 subscribers, and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on any videos that go up in the future. If there are any weird or obscure movies that you grew up with that you'd like to see me make a video like this on, where I just kind of watch it and poke fun at it, let me know in the comments below and I'll check it out. I'll add it to the list. Take care of yourselves and others, and as always, thanks for watching.